ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। यावत् काचित् तम अवले इष्टया संदर्शनम तवा उद सुनोच ईक्षमाणा कंडुक क्रीडया मना। So as we are reading this part of Bhagavatam, is safeguarding us, telling that what we are supposed to think and do. Especially in Kali Yuga, the whole world is geared up for the sense enjoyment. And that especially the sex life. On the right is one of the purport. If the sameness of a woman is left open, and then it will create the havoc in the whole society. So that is the reason it is Shastra stressed on the chastity of the woman. In the Vedic time, they have been trained, they have been cultured, so that they become very chaste to their husband. Even so much so that even the husband is invalid, deceased, still, even though the wife may be very beautiful, another thing, she is to serve the husband wholeheartedly. Srila Prabhupada mentioned in one of the purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the last chapter of Antagita, where the Radharani, she is last chapter of Antilila, what is the name? Remember the last chapter of Sikshastaka. How this Sikshastaka has come and how beautifully they have been arranged. If one read them, you get the beauty. And Prabhupada says in one of the purport, one remembers Sikshastaka every day, then you gradually, slowly develop the love for Kṛṣṇa without doubt. These Sikshastaka were not something like that the Lord told once, continuously to someone. Beginning, he said many different places to different personalities. Like he said to someone like Kṛṣṇa, to somewhere, this. But in the last, he reiterated to the Sarup, Damodar and Ramananda. So the Sikshastaka, as beautifully Srila Prabhupada has written, and also the Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he has given the Lord has recited these verses and different mood, each verse. If you read the CC, you'll get to know each verse with a different mood. I won't go into much detail, just I'm giving the synopsis. It takes a lot of time. Like the beginning verse, Cheto Darpan Marjanam, begin in the mood of jubilation. And how one after another it becomes more and more intense humility, intense attachment with no condition, all circumstances, serving Kṛṣṇa. So, in the last verse was the highest ecstasy of Radha. Ashrishava Padhanam Vinashtam Adashnam Adabhava Vidanatam Vadaprananatasthi. In all conditions, she is surrendering to Kṛṣṇa. You accept me, you reject me, you trample me, you don't come, but you will be my worshipful Lord. So in that context, further and she goes in furthermore after this verse, more explanation. So Prabhupada writes, he refers to Markandeya Purana. There was one person, he was very deceased and old, invalid. He had a beautiful wife. This Prabhupada mentions the chastity of the woman, how great it was. So, she had that kind of person as a husband, her husband. She was very chaste. So much so that she never thought of any man. And so happened this man who was deceased, her husband, had developed a desire to associate with prostitute. So degree of chastity. And they were very poor as well. So his wife, she goes to that prostitute and served her wholeheartedly. She became pleased. She said, what do you want? She said, I wish you can associate with my husband. She's like this. So she agreed because he served very loyally, honestly. And so much so he cannot walk. She carried him to that place. She said, you have to bring him here. And when they landed there, and the husband got to know about the whole thing, and he said, let us go back. So here, our attachment to Kṛṣṇa, so in all conditions, without any condition, our love for Kṛṣṇa, that is already there. We should never get illusioned by that. Today morning also we read the translation. Anyone remember? Falsity and miseries of material world. We have been cheated again and again. Paramattha. So like a mad person only just like to get cheated again and again, knowingly. So the Shastra is talking about again and again. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has depicted in his multiple pastimes many times. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given the ideal person who wishes to advance in spiritual life, how he is to conduct himself. He was so strict, so much so that no Mata is a female can come near to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is a Lord himself. But he is setting example if he at all wish to advance in his spiritual path. And also he is enacted with the pastimes of Chota Haridas Thakur, which you all know. Bhagavad-gītā, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, used to go for prasadam in Jagannath when he is staying. So initially Sarva Bhattacharya has requested him, Chaitanya, you have to come and take prasadam in my house only. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu flatly said, no. As a sannyasi should not have a one place where he gets all maintenance. No. That is not allowed. So flatly denied. But somehow he requests again and again and again. He said, Chaitanya, I can come only one day in a month. Somehow again the bargain goes on. Then he agreed for 5 days in a month. So one particular day, the Bhagavad-Acharya invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That day, Bhagavad-Acharya was not having much, rice was not there. He requested Chota Haridasa, please go and get the alms from the house of Shikhi Mahiti. And his sister was Madhavi Devi. So Chota Haridas Thakur, Chota is called because there is another Haridas Thakur, Namacharya, so that's the reason it's called Chota Haridas. He goes for begging the rice and he bring the rice. And he said that when he went for begging the rice, he glanced at her lustfully. And after taking the rice, he comes and cooking happens. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes for prasada. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had prasada. Then he asked, Bhagavata, who brought this rice? He said, Chota Haridasa. From where? He replied that the house of Sikkimai, Madhavi, his sister Sikkim. And Lord took prasad without speaking to anything. He went. And as we know, he was staying with his close personal secretary Sarvadam. He calls him Sarvadam a very angry mood. He said, now onwards, Chota Haridasa should not come and see me anytime. So this news, they asked, but he was blind. He said, no, never should come. So they all understood that something wrong is happening. And when Chota Haridasa got to know about this, he was very sad and very repentant of his action. But many devotees requested. He said, no, he cannot come and meet me. So Chota Haridasa, he took a one commitment, I will not eat anything if I don't able to meet the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He used to go every day. Most of the time he was there with the Lord. So he said, I will not take anything. So the devotee requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was very strict. He said, no, I am not going to meet this type of thing. And once they said, if you ask me again, then I will leave from here and you will not find me anymore. So all become very much this thing. Then they went to the Chota Haridasa and made him understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very strict, very angry mood. So now, even if you are also become adamant, if you are also adamant, then nothing will happen, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's anger will grow more. So you will all understand. You take now Shanam. Gradually, slowly, his mood will change. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for 1 year, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to go for having a darshan of Jagannath temple, is to watch Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in far off place. And he was waiting for 1 year. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mood is never changed. One fine day, Chota Hidasa, on the night he got up and left without intimating anyone. He is going. Then all we know, he was to walk through from Jagannath Puri to Prayag, and he returned to the Sanga and leave the body. Then devotee was searching, where the Chota Hidasa is gone. Later on, it was discovered that someone has come from Prayag and found the devotees. He is done society, left. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he got to know, he said, everyone has to bear their karma. What he is done is good. And Chodaidas Thakur, when he left his body, he became Gandharva, and he has to sing for the Lord in visible form. Once this happens, the devotees went to the seashore, sea beach there. Suddenly they heard the beautiful singing of, because he was a very beautiful singer, singing of Haridas. Some of the devotees said, maybe because he done society might have become a ghost, and settled down and corrected no. The devotee who had done some service to the Lord can never become a ghost. And one of the Purport, I'll just read the translation of Purport. It is said further this regarding this. Mahaprabhu Kripa Sindhu Ki Pare Bujite. He is a Kripa Sindhu. He is a Padat Pavana, all as we know. And why he is so much strict at the same time? Priya Bhakti Danda Kare Dharma Bujhaite. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is ocean of mercy. Who can understand him? When he chastises dear devotee, certainly does so to re-establish the principle of pleasure or duty. Through this example, he is setting up some principle. And there is a beautiful description for this given by Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur Maharaj. More detail. So the Lord is teaching with this example. Is a Patit Pavana is there, but he says, whoever you may be, whatever form. Once we take the shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, once we take the shelter of Mahaprabhu's spiritual master coming in the name of Chaitanya, then we must become very strict to following the rules and regulations. We cannot become hanky-panky, anything here and there, anything. So just read the small part of the CC of this verse. Said, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura says in this connection that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, ocean of mercy, chastised Junior Haridasa. Although Junior Haridasa was a dear devotee, was very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to establish that one in the devotional line engage in pure devotional service should not be hypocrite is condemned by Chaitanya. For a person engaged in devotional service and the renounced order, having intimate relation with women is certainly hypocrisy. This chastisement was given to Junior Haridasa as an example to future Sahajiyas might adopt a dress of renounced order or devotee to imitate Rupa Goswami and other bona fide sannyasis, but secretly having illicit connection with them. To teach such men, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chastised his dear devotee Haridasa for a slight deviation from the regulatory principles. Srimati Madhavi Devi was a highly elevated devotee. Therefore, approaching her to ask for some rights to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was certainly not very offensive. However, just to preserve the regulatory principles for the future, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enforced the hard and fast rule that no one in the renounced order should intimately mix with or even talk with her. Had Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu not chastised Haridas Thakur for this slight deviation, so-called devotees of the Lord would have exploited the example of Haridas Thakur, Junior Haridasa, to continue their behavior of illicit connection with women unrestrictedly. Indeed, they still preach that such behavior is allowed for a Vaishnava, but it is strictly not allowed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a teacher for the entire world, and therefore he enforced this exemplary punishment to establish that illicit sexual connection are never allowed by Vaishnava philosophy. This was his purpose in chastising Junior Haridasa. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in fact the most magnanimous incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead, but strictly prohibited illicit sex. So if we really want to go out from this material, Maithili Avara, it is said in the scriptures. So like prisoners are shackled, they are present inside by the iron chain. Similarly, the jiva who are revolted against Kṛṣṇa and who want to enjoy. As he said, enjoyment is not wrong. Material enjoyment which are looking at is a falsity. As actually we are getting cheated again, life after life. See, in any species of life, we get the sense gratification. Ahar mitra labda sudurlabam idam bahusam bhavan manusham artadam anitya apiyeti turnam yatetana pratetana Khalu Sarvatash had said every life you get the sense gratification. But the human life is very precious. And what we carry in Chaitanya, we proceed in that direction. Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so strict? Even looking at, even thinking, contemplation can take it to completely wrong direction. Yeah, in the CC when Pratap Rudra, he wanted to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sarva Bhattacharya, he was very close to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and also very close to Pratap Rudra. And Pratapruddha being a king, and also he was a great devotee as well. He requested to Sarvamatacarya, if you can please the audience with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I wish to meet him. So I just read few of the verses. Sarvam kahi e Pratapruddha Rai Utkantha ahache toma milivare chai. Utkanta is very eager. Sarvamatacarya said, there is a king named Pratapruddha Rai. He is very anxious, Utkanta, to meet you. And he wants your permission. Karne hast diya Prabhu Ismarne Narayana. He closes his ears and he remembered Krishna, Narayana. Karne hast diya Prabhu Ismarne Narayana. Sarvon kaha ken ayog vachana. आप अयोग वचन क्यों बोल रहे हैं? Why are you saying this? Why are you saying this thing? So, as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard his proposal, he immediately covered his ears with the hands and said, my dear Sarvoma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me? विरक्त सन्यासी अमार राजदर्शना स्त्री दर्शना समा विशेर भक्षणा. Seeing darshana, seeing a materialistic person or even a woman is like Vishir Bhakshana. Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking water. See, unless one comes out that illicit tendency of the mind, or the rights in the one of the purport in the Bhagavad-gītā, marriage also allowed with a certain restrictions. Who cannot control, for them is allowed ultimately is to leave everything. He cannot continue and just gone. Who cannot control at all, for them some concession for some time, for certain condition, with certain conditions are allowed. Ultimately, is to completely come out. False attachment to the body. Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet woman, to meet either two wives. Then he quotes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is quoting the famous verse, Niskincanasya Bhagavad-bhajanon param param jigmasur bhavsagarasya sandarshanam visainam atyusitam cha ha hanta hanta visvakshano bhaktisad. Bhagavad-bhajanon param param jigmasur. If you are at all desiring to go out to Bhavsagara, and you want to do Bhagavad-bhajanon mukasya, really you want to do Bhagavad-bhajana, and then with the right consciousness, then sandarshanam, just looking at them, not enjoying is all very lower stage. Just sandarshanam visainam atyusitam cha. Just looking at them, ha hanta hanta This Bhakshano is better to drink poison and die. Why? Because if you take a poison, you die once, but you develop such a tendency, you have to die life after life and suffer such a mentality. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarva Bhattacharya, alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motive, seeing the materialistic engage in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested in more abominable than drinking a poison willingly. Janya Sunya Viskaya. So our scriptures restrict so much so that one should not be in an isolated place with his mother, sister, and daughter. Can you see how strict the rules are? If you really want this to advance, he said, no, I am very learned, I know what is wrong, what is right, everything. With gods. But still, Sasa is talking, no. Whatever anyone else, even the mother, sister, and daughter. So this is a quotation from this verse, Niskinchanas, Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. See, we are such a place, at least we know what is right now. We are under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada. At least, other the whole world, even big so-called spiritual organizations, yogīs, this one which both is right, completely different. At least we know what is right and wrong. Such a great fortune we have. Just we have to follow. If we have really wished to advance, we have to follow Prabhupada as it is. This is a quotation. We can't say, no, I am very strong and nothing. No, we have to follow as it is. So this is a quotation from Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enunciated the principle for a sannyasi renouncing the material world for spiritual advancement. Spiritual advancement is not meant for magic, shows, and jugglery, but for crossing the material world and being transferred to the spiritual world. It's not just simply talking and acting like a spiritual person. No, really, if you wish that the consciousness could change. Param jigmisho, meaning desiring to go to the other side of material world. There is a river called Betarni, and on one side of this river is a material world, other side is spiritual world. Since the Betarni river is compared to the great ocean, it is named called Bhava-saukhya. The ocean of repeated birth and death. Spiritual life aims at stopping this repetition of birth and death, entering into the spiritual world, where one can live eternally cognizant and blissful with Kṛṣṇa. See, we are getting cheated again and again for the false thing. What a price we are giving. So much suffering, falsity, miseries of this world. The Prabhupada quotes the referring to the purport today, the last Nayam Dev Vaja Kṛṣṇa Kalma Arhate Bid Bhujani Tapo Divyam Putra Kasa. Tapo Divyam Putra Tasmat brahma-saukhya. So people are working hard day and night, slogging. Because we are in a prison where we have to slog like this. At the end of the day, what you are desiring by slogging so much, working hard, that to poison more and more sufferings. In Bhagavad-gītā, Kṛṣṇa says, Yogīs Pyo Satmaka Buddhi Samadhona Bhogeshwar Prashakta. Prashakta, one is attached to the Bhoga nature. Or Tayapati Chetasam, or seeing others indulging in Bhoga Sarya, he gets bewildered. Pure Satmaka Buddhi is fixed intelligence will not be there. In Bhagavad-gītā, second chapter gives example. So we got the senses, yes, senses to be engaged, they have to engage in the Krishnas. And you should be very careful. The tortoise example is there. कछुए का उदाहरण दिया गया. The tortoise takes the limbs out, walking. As some danger comes, he takes his limbs inside that sail, covering sail, the protecting sail, the tortoise has. It is given example in Bhagavatam. Even one of the senses in Bhagavatam is not controlled. It will take us a different path. Like it is given the example of animal of moth, patanga, cannot control the beautiful form of fire. No, he likes beautiful form of fire. He enters and dies. Some is parsaja bhoga tuk evne evite adya antavanta konteya nate sutante. When senses come in touch with the sense object, you're gone. You can't do anything. So that's why restrictions are allowed. And that is the source of our miseries. Dukh evne. We think when sense object getting touch with the senses are getting touch with the sense object, it is happiness. Actually, that is the source of miseries. So the sense object, the form, smell, sound, touch and taste. So one example is there. One is moth cannot restrict herself for seeing the beautiful form, she enters and she dies. Sound is there, the example of deer. The deer cannot catch, they are very spurti, they run here and there. But because of they play music, they get attracted and they get caught. Then touch is elephant. Elephant, nobody can pick, but elephant get caught by training a female elephant, follows a female elephant, follows the ditch. Smell? Huh? And what is left now? Taste. Taste is? Fish. Little they put with the hook. Weight is called. So you want to grab. As soon as you grab, you get caught. So even these examples has one sense and control. You have all five senses and control. In whatever condition. So that's the Shastra saying that restricting and work in the protected environment, we are aloof from it all. Even seeing them, even contemplating them, will take us a different path. Unfortunately, the general populace does not know anything about spiritual life or spiritual world. Kota parastasma sadhavu yakto yaktasana yamsa sarveshu shudra. So thus there is a spiritual nature beyond this material world, and spiritual exists eternally. Spiritual advancement means stopping material activities and entering into their spiritual activities. This is the process of bhakti in material world. The by media of a sense gratification is mainly the sex life. One who is seriously interested in spiritual life should strictly avoid it completely. Sannyasis would never see a man or woman for material benefit. In addition, talks with materialistic men or women are also dangerous. Compared to drinking poison, even talking to them. You can see how, because Sasha do not cheat us. So called other people say do whatever you wish. If they're really interested, go back. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very strict on this point, even talking. He therefore refused to see the king Pratap, who was naturally always engaged in political and economic affairs. The Lord even refused to see the king despite the request of personality like Sarva Bhattacharya, who was the Lord's intimate friend and devotee. He is saying that sometimes so we may oblige, or sometimes we become obliged. But the Lord was very strict. Sarv Bhaum kahe Satta Tumar Vachana Jagannath Sevak Raja Kintu Bhakta Uttama. You said right, but this Pratap Rudra is not ordinary person. He is a Jagannath Sevaka and Bhakta Uttama. So Prabhu kahe Tathapi Raja Kal Sarpaka. Even though we may be Bhakta Uttama, even though we Jagannath Sevaka, but he's saying Tathapi, even though Raja Kal Sarpakara. Caste nari sparse eche upje bekara. So the example is given here is that Chaitanya said, Allah, it is correct that the king is a great devotee, but is still to be considered a venomous snake serpent. Even though he may be. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form. Shri Chanak Pandit has stated in his moral instruction, Tyaj Durjan Samsarkam Bhaj Sadhu Samagamam. This means that one has to avoid an association of materialistic people and associate with spiritually advanced people. However qualified a materialistic may be, he is no better than a venomous serpent. Everyone knows that a snake is dangerous and poisonous. When its hood is decorated with jewel, it is no less poisonous or dangerous. Not snakes have something hood on the jewel. So even though he may be jewel, but it's very dangerous. So this is our even though the Pratap. However, qualified materialistic may be is no better than snake decorated with jewel. One should therefore be careful in dealing with such materials, just as one would be careful in dealing with a jeweled serpent. Even though a woman be made of wood or stone, she becomes attractive when decorated. One becomes sexually agitated even by touching the form. Therefore, one should not trust his mind, which is so fickle that it can give away to enemies at any moment. The mind is always accompanied by 6 enemies: Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya. Just we analyze our mind, what mind thinks. Even though we may say, yeah, the whole mind will be Kama, Krodha, Mada, enviousness, jealousy. Sometimes it so happens for Lord Vaishya, even though he do not it comes automatically. But we have been conditioned for many, many lives. Adi karma phale. Merge in spiritual consciousness. One should, even though we are doing spiritual practices, although the mind may be merged in spiritual consciousness, one should always be very careful in dealing with it. Just as one is careful dealing with his snake. One should never think that his mind is trained, that he can do whatever he likes. One interested in spiritual life should always engage his mind in the service of the Lord so much that enemies of the mind who always accompany the mind will be subdued. So that's the reason. Always 24 hours engagement of the mind. And today morning in the fourth period after Bhagavad-gītā, we have to chant Hare Krishna mantra and hear each word. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We should not even miss one word. Only hope is Sankirtana. Only hope is practically. And we take the complete surrender, not just showing off. You have to cry, no? You have to cry to the Lord, please help me. I caught up in a very dangerous place. So Hare Krishna is like a crying for the Lord, asking his favor. Please help me so that I can completely engage your service. Unless you are fully engaged in service, you cannot come out of this. Because it is said, if you are not Krishna conscious, then you have to be Maya conscious. If the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness, at every moment, see how it's not 2 hours chanting is not sufficient. That also. So it is said, if the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness at every moment, there is a chance that it will give way to its enemies. In this way, we become victims of the mind. Chanting Hare Krishna mantra engages the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna constantly. Always. Chanting Hare Krishna mantra engages the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. Thus, mind's enemies do not have a chance to strike. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example, in these verses, we should be very careful dealings with the mind, which should not be indulged in any circumstances. See, little indulgence is very intoxicating to take the wrong path. Once we indulge the mind, it can create havoc in his spiritual life, even though he may be spiritually involved. The mind is basically agitated through the association of materialistic men and women. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his personal behavior, warns everyone to avoid meeting a materialistic person and woman. It is said, Akarad api bhetavyam istrinam visainam api yatha hir manasa shovas tatha tasya kirtir. It says, bhetavyam means you will be fearful, like when the snake comes, sometimes you walk in suddenly snake comes. Or even the form of the snake. And sometimes they play with the imitating snake. So we become very much afraid. So it is said that just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent, or even the form of the serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear the materialistic person only. Indeed, he should not even glance at their bodily features. So this again from Chetan Chandra. एचे बाद पुनरअपि मुखे न आनीवे कहा यदि तबे अमाय एथा न देखिवे. If you said you will tell me again to meet the king, then you will not see me. Bhattacharya, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Like for the beautiful, there's another incident about there. Even when Chaitanya was there in the Jagannath Puri, one of the widow's son used to come and meet Chaitanya. And that widow was little young and beautiful. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu somehow, because that son is there, a little speech inclined, he was a little favoring and coming meeting regularly. That time, the devotee of Chaitanya, what was the name? Who instructed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Damodar Pandit. He corrected the law. Not the female, even the female son is coming. So no, you will invite so many unwanted talk if you associate with son of that widow. So there are many examples are given in the Shastras and telling us how careful we must be in our spirituality, if at all we wish to advance. And unless we develop complete free from all kind of sensitive thought, then only we can able to approach Kṛṣṇa, and then only we are able to serve Radha Krishna or Krishna. So yes, we should not do like Chota Haridas or what he did, otherwise everything should be empty of. But still, you have to how careful. And for this, there is no way of dying if you that's like in the case of Sanatana Goswami, he wanted to end his life by coming out in the middle of ananta. So that in that case, Chaitanya said, by dying, if you get Kṛṣṇa, then I will die. But dying will not get Kṛṣṇa. So, but he is not a gentleman. They said, even he is not a gentleman. But it's very strict, so much so he never allowed grihastha in ashram. Only brahmacharis are there. But Chaitanya Prabhupada is very merciful. Somehow he gave us some basis for us to follow. But with all complete condition, restrictions, and unless we are Krishna conscious, we cannot vow for this particular. So give an opportunity for all of us. Let us try best, at least we know what is good for us, what we have to follow. And let's try. Because the purpose is good. The Kali Yuga is filled with all things. Be very, very careful, always associate with the devotee, and otherwise there's no hope other than taking the full shelter of holy name. And if there is a sincere desire, and follow the rules and regulation, without following the rules and regulation, now so come now, even you are not happy now in the next one. Now you will not be happy, now son, because mind, you know, to be peaceful in the mind. Mind always look after sense gratification, one way or another. Sometimes we want to do puja, we want to show ourselves better devotee than others. Sometimes some devotee develop enviousness, we put down someone. So this all one of this also subtle expression Bhagavad says. This society is again in that time. So even this gross if you are not able to avoid it, further you have to move on the spiritual path and completely will be happy with Krishna, whichever condition Krishna gave you. So the rights in the last chapter, Antali, is beautiful. You must always be full. How humility is important. Without humility, chanting will not produce the right thing which we are looking for. We want to lord it over material nature with a different ways as a devotee also. My mind is not peace, so mind is making plan. How I can be more popular, how I can, this devotee is more popular, I will work down, how to do this thing. My mind will keep, how can I say I'm better devotee. So, but in the humility, the right humility, then only will able to engage peaceful in the chanting of the Holy. So it may not happen one day, but at least we should know what is expected from all of us. So let us sincerely try, let us be, otherwise this material world is very horrible. And only shelter this association of devotees. Somehow we got into this, how we don't know. Some devotee help us to get into this association, even though we have not so desire. So Bhagavatam says this is the only place where you can expect going back to God. I always say even this facility which we have, this will not have in the Brahma-saukhya. Even though there are a lot of positive people are, at least we know black and white what is right, what is wrong, how we have to proceed. And that genuine desire we develop, all help, guidance, mercy will come from Kṛṣṇa and Prabhupada. That genuine desire, if you want to cheat ourselves, nothing can be done. So let us develop genuine desire, sincere desire, and keep hearing again and again. So that's the reason we are reading so important. We read again. It goes so that we become fixed up in our proper path. We do not cheat ourselves. You cannot cheat anyone. You are cheating yourself. So even thought, even glancing, even thinking also is so dangerous. And furthermore, is how dangerous it will be. So let's try like this. So I pray to Haridas Thakur, pray to Chaitanya, and you to cry, literally you have to cry. The front of the Lord, front of Chaitanya, Prabhupada, please help me. The cry will happen only when you have genuine desire. Really want, yes, Krishna, I want anything in this world. Any clarification, any question, no, anything. The dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, the dust of the lotus feet. No, Vaishnavas were even there on the lotus feet. So I will stop and get the Rashi.